I want people to understand this ordeal. It's taken a toll on both of us.
Casey Anthony's parents respond after 15 years of allegations.
I've gotten blamed for something I didn't do, and it tears me up inside.
This can change our life. This is serious.
This is their final response.
The test is about to begin. Please remain still.
Casey Anthony's parents, the lie detector test. Watch now, only on A&E. And watch next day on the A&E app.
The friendship is sharing deal. Because I want one of your McNuggets.
And I need some of your Quarter Pounder.
There's a deal for everyone at McDonald's. Get one favorite like 10-piece chicken McNuggets, a Quarter Pounder, or a Big Mac, and get another for just $1. Price and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
To get the Crime Writers on After Show right now, go to patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, a psychiatrist is kidnapped and forced to provide therapy to a serial killer. Can he cure the psychopath and win his freedom before becoming another one of his victims? We're talking about The Patient from Hulu. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of the These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Oh, I'm so relaxed right now. Got my feet in the sand, drinking a frozen drink.
Frozen mojito?
Yeah, it's 7 a.m. when this podcast comes out.
Yes.
We're actually going to be in Mexico.
Actually, we're going to be an hour behind, so it will it will be like 7 a.m.
I don't know. I'm probably not going to get up early, even if it is to have a mojito.
Oh, you don't like mojitos. You don't like mint.
A mojito? No, I don't care for mint. I'll just
do.
Go for maybe
You like the
pina
heavy
colada.
coconut drinks, yes.
I like pina coladas and
That's
getting caught in the rain.
Miami Vices.
I like pina coladas, too. I like painkillers, too.
We know.
You should try a painkiller when you're on your trip.
Also with us is private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, painkiller connoisseur, and author of the best-selling Dead on Deadline and Final Curtain, Lara Bricker. Hello, Lara.
Hello, Rebecca. Yes, I have tried all. I've gone to the source of the original painkiller in the British Virgin Islands, and I've done a full study into them. So if you need advice, I'm glad to share my knowledge.
Lara Bricker, white paper on painkillers.
We're going to Mexico. Listen, it's all about the margaritas there. And finally, our captain of all things cynical, author of the City Trilogy, host of the Strange Arrivals podcast, and our very own Patreon Deep Dive Book Club podcast, Toby Ball. Hello, Toby.
Hola, Rebecca. Just giving you some practice.
Oh, well, Kevin actually does speak a lot of Spanish when we go to Mexico. I do not.
I don't speak a lot of Spanish. I frequently speak a little bit of Spanish to the people I see.
That's right.
Dos cervezas, por favor.
Yeah, I'm just buenos dias.
Yes.
¿Qué pasa?
I say hello.
Ciao.
Good morning.
Yeah.
How are you?
I just think it's polite. I mean, obviously, I'm not fluent, or they probably don't expect me to be fluent, but I just think it's as a general courtesy to address them in Spanish is fine.
I would love to, except that I know I'll do it wrong. And since literally everybody...
Oh, try. Don't let the fear of failure stop you, Rebecca.
No, I just overcompensate by being super freaking nice to everybody that I meet.
Hey, where are you going in Mexico?
We're
going...
not
telling you.
Yeah, we'll be there by now. We're going to the Mayan Riviera, to a beautiful resort that I've always wanted to go to, that has by the way, in our room, a plunge pool, just like the Pineapple Suite.
We're going to the White Lotus.
What town? Are you going to Playa del Carmen, or?
We will not be telling you that.
I actually don't know where. It's...
Yes.
Like we're getting in a car with a stranger.
We'll send you a link.
Driving into the jungle.
Toby, we'll send you a link.
Oh, my.
I'm not planning on surprising you.
It's not for you that we're not telling you, Toby.
Yeah.
We actually have friends who have literally showed up on our vacations before. And Kevin and I we've never been on a trip together alone, just the two of us. And we believe we're cursed.
Okay.
So literally, we've decided to not share our location with anybody in advance of our going until we are there this time.
And so as I reach out and hold her hand, this is our actual honeymoon.
This is your honeymoon?
We've never had a honeymoon. So now we can go
gosh.
And we can argue in private.
That's right.
Hey, we could have a honeymoon
With a
honeymoon
butler.
baby.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Ooh, I can hardly wait.
It's going to be my birthday while we're there, and I'm way too old for a baby. So, Kevin, this is obviously Monday's program, and we are not going to be dropping a Thursday program this week because we're going to be on vacation.
Yeah.
So what is on next Monday's podcast?
Next Monday, we're going to be talking about the new podcast from Cerebral Productions. It's called We Were Three.
All right. I'm looking forward to that discussion. And so next week, there won't be a Thursday podcast either, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Womp womp.
2 weeks in a row of 1 week.
It's just like it's a summer thing. It's fine.
People will be fine.
You still get your crime writers on every week.
Yeah. It's going to be substantive. Just won't be as plentiful.
We're about quantity, not quality. No. Well, let me try that again.
I think you got it right.
Yeah, I think I got it right the first time. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think we should just get to the topic of this episode. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that first clip right now.
Do it.
He hit me.
All the time.
When you say all the time, could you be any more specific about it?
Pretty much all the time.
Alan Strauss is a recent widower, estranged from his Orthodox son, and just took on a secretive new patient for therapy. The man kidnaps Alan and chains him in his basement. Sam Fortner reveals he's a serial killer and wants the therapist to help him change his violent ways.
Let me go.
I know you'd have to turn me in.
No. I would not have to turn you in. Legally, ethically, unless you told me you were going to commit another crime, I can work with you. Everything you've told me so far is confidential.
I am going to commit another crime.
During his captivity, Alan ponders his many regrets in life, all while attempting to cure Sam's murderous urges. He knows if he's unsuccessful and can't prevent his patient from killing again, he'll surely become Sam's next victim.
If I don't figure this out, he's going to strangle me and I'm going into that grave. Or the next one. I know it's crazy, but I was starting to connect with him.
Tuesday is the finale for Hulu's 10-part miniseries, The Patient. Steve Carell and Domhnall Gleeson each give tightly wound performances. Both men struggle with how their pasts affect their present. Can Alan convince Sam to stop killing in the ultimate test of cerebral fitness? Spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about significant plot points from the first 9 episodes of The Patient. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes to hear our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. Kevin, have you ever related more to a serial killer who runs on Dunkin'?
I don't get the extra large Dunkin' cup.
No, but have you ever related less to a serial killer who gets the Dunk's coffee but not the Dunk's donuts? Which I wonder if is actually a secret plot point in this show.
That's how you know he's a serial killer.
Okay.
He's just, I'm going to get another large and pee a lot.
Yeah. I definitely was more cognizant of my peeing when I was watching the show.
Well, Laura,
1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000.
Well, Laura, watching the show is very much like watching a play, right? Mm-hmm. Because the setting is so tight. They're largely in this one room for most of the show.
Yeah.
And what do you feel about that? Because it definitely kind of limits your experience of the universe of the show.
Well, it's unique because we see a lot of shows where we have like big sets and we have our location porn and all that stuff. And here we have this outdated house, kind of reminds me of something that's been there for, unchanged in decades. But there's times I found myself frustrated with this setting because I was like, I want to see something else. But then I was like, that's the point, because you start to feel that same sense of trapped claustrophobia that we have Alan feeling as he's down there. But also the sort of slant of this particular show is this relationship between these two people. And it's really like that is the focus, is the relationship between Alan and his patient. And that is a very nuanced performance, and it doesn't need a lot of extraneous things put into the setting. But it definitely kept it intimate and contained. And it's two actors that were both doing, I thought, really great performances. And that allowed those performances to really come through because you weren't distracted by anything else.
Now, Toby, you can't hide, though, when you're in a setting that's this tight, right? You can't write poorly. You can't act poorly. I mean, I think the big surprise for me, like, was when the mom walked down the stairs, because I'm like, okay, we're introducing a third character into this tiny set. What do you think of the tightness of this and the performances that we're seeing from especially the two main characters here?
Yeah, I think they're both good. I think Carell's like, he's just a very good actor, and seems like very much the therapist, and the writing is very, I think, true to sort of therapist outlook and therapist talk and all that stuff.
We are all part of family systems. You, me, everyone. Changes to those systems can have a profound effect on us, even at your age. And I was thinking that it might be beneficial if we were to do some family therapy work with you and your mother.
And I also think it's not necessarily easy to play like a serial killer in a way that's compelling and nuanced. I think he does that here, but not not overly nuanced. I mean, he is, he's a sociopath, obviously. So yeah, I think the acting's good. I thought the writing was excellent. I mean, they're as you were saying, there's no place to hide. A lot of it is just the two of them talking, right? So the dialogue has to be right on point. You have to believe in the many twists and turns that their relationship takes, and the way in which particularly the therapist is trying to manipulate. And it all has to ring true. And I think it did, like 98% of the time. It just seemed like it was right on. When I saw the setup, I was like, this is going to be tough to pull off. I think they do. I think it's really impressive.
Kevin, I think we've seen Steve Carell in roles like this before, where he brings sort of like this dad tenderness. I think the way back is sort of like a role where I've seen him like sort of in this like very,
He was a douche in that one, but I understand.
But sort of like, the dad vibes. I mean, we've seen him in roles where he has range before, I think.
Yes.
And I'm not surprised by his range here. Like, there are notes here of Steve Carell that I recognize.
Yeah.
I think Domhnall Gleeson is kind of a revelation in this. By the way, aside from his weird resemblance to Payne Lindsay, which I cannot not see every time I watch this, because being a serial killer, right? You're supposed to be scaring your audience all the time. But we're also supposed to believe that there are notes of redeemability potentially to this character.
Right.
And to carry that off for 10 episodes, like, that is a note that is difficult to carry off for 10 episodes. Do you think he's carrying it off? Because I do.
Yeah, because usually when we see a serial killer, and I think this is what Toby was getting at, is that they either portray him or her as either sinister and diabolical or just brutal. And in this case, he has just sort of the right amount of awkward and menace. He's less a physical threat as he is sort of like this thin pane of glass that just could shatter. And that's kind of the thing that you're hoping not to set him off in that way. He is the antagonist in the story, but I'm not sure if we are or are not supposed to have sympathy for him. I mean, his boss was a dick, so he did kind of deserve it, but But yeah, I think that we see a very different side of this serial killer than we do in other fictional portrayals of that. And I think that if we thought that there was no changing him, then there's no point to the therapy exercise. And because we end up thinking that, well, Steve Carell is pretty good at this and we're rooting for him to succeed, that means that we have to believe that there is a chance that he can fix Sam, or at least get him to
move
not
him
kill
in
long
some
enough
way, yeah.
so the cops get him. Yeah.
The thing that I think he does really well is, they always talk about, like, people talk about, like, serial killers are, they're losers. They're like society's losers. And he kind of gets that across with his awkwardness. And I think the other thing is he just shows that he has a really hard time relating to people in normal ways. So even when he has his ex-wife comes over, like, he's unable to carry on a conversation. And when he does try, it's awkward. And then when he finally says something that he means, it's, my dad used to beat the hell out of me. And it's like, ooh, okay, on that note, this is ending.
I kind of miss the lazy boy.
He's very comfortable. I could bring it back if you want.
Oh, no, that's okay. No.
That chair was his father's.
My father beat me up a lot. when I was a kid. That's why I went into therapy.
I don't know. It seemed really well done to me.
It seemed that way to me too, but it also to me hinted at like a different part of the story that we're not seeing. Because I'm like, how did he and his ex-wife get together? What was their relationship like? What the hell is going on with the mother? Like, I feel like the mother is a part of the story that is a piece that is happening that we have not been revealed to us yet.
Yeah, it's Chekhov's mom.
Yes.
Like, she's a serial killer too.
Or that she is enabling this in some way we haven't seen. Like, what we have seen on its face is that she knows he's a serial killer and she's like, Sam, you're being a naughty boy again. Like, sort of like, Norman Bates' fake mother upstairs or whatever.
Yeah.
Because as soon as he said that to his ex-wife, she just got it from the table and left in a way that was like extremely menacing to me. That was more than just like, we don't talk about that. I don't know, Laura, do you feel like there's a layer here that we just haven't seen yet in this? Or is that just me like trying to layer more subtext onto this?
It's pretty fucked up. First of all, they set it up brilliantly. He hears somebody upstairs and he's like, hello, I'm down here. And then she comes down and she's like, yeah, no, I know about his little problem or whatever she says. But her affect is so sort of flat and she doesn't really react to anything. So that to me leads me to believe there is definitely more to her story. Like, her personality hasn't really come out yet. And I'm like, oh, is she going to turn into a psycho? I don't know. But you have to wonder, based on what we've seen, and also the fact that he's living there and that she's allowing this guy to stay in the basement, chained up to the bed. But I think that's going to make the story more interesting, because that could be like the big shocker at the end, and that like, hey, surprise, the dad beat the shit out of me, but my mom killed him. Or, like there's something to her that, like, I agree. I would like to see more from her role. And I think, wouldn't it be exciting if that's the big twist?
Do you ever meet someone who seems kind of off? Whether it's a creepy neighbor or random phone number that keeps calling you, Truthfinder has you covered. You can search for people by name, address, phone number, email, and more. Truthfinder can be especially helpful for running confidential background checks on anyone you're planning to meet from online dating apps. Go to truthfinder.com/podcasts for a special offer. That's truthfinder.com/podcasts to access your special offer today.
I want people to understand this ordeal. It's taken a toll on both of us.
Casey Anthony's parents respond after 15 years of allegations.
I've gotten blamed for something I didn't do, and it tears me up inside.
This can change our life. This is serious.
This is their final response.
The test is about to begin. Please remain still.
Casey Anthony's parents, the lie detector test. Watch now, only on A&E. And watch next day on the A&E app.
The friendship is sharing deal. Because I want one of your McNuggets.
And I need some of your Quarter Pounder.
There's a deal for everyone at McDonald's. Get one favorite like 10-piece chicken McNuggets, a Quarter Pounder, or a Big Mac, and get another for just $1. Price and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
All right, so Kevin, here we are in the business section.
Yeah, let's do some business.
What do we have going on our Patreon right now, Kevin?
Well, we have the Crime Writers on After Show, and today we're going to talk about developments in the case of murder on Middle Beach.
Ooh, Madison Hamburg.
Yeah, apparently there's some stuff going on at the Connecticut State Supreme Court.
Have you looked into that?
Have you? Oh, well,
it's
now you have
a short conversation.
A short conversation. I saw a tweet,
Me too. I saw a tweet too. I thought you were going to look into
Well, there's a tweet thread. I read the whole thread.
Oh, good.
So.
That's all you had to do.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so we can talk about that. And we can also just revisit one of my favorite documentaries of all time, Murder on Middle Beach. Anything else we got going on the after show, or is that it? Just our
well, we'll see what craziness we get into.
Poorly researched Tweetopedia.
Maybe we'll just keep pulling out some tweets. And
what else are we going on our Patreon, Kevin?
Well, Toby Ball's going to do a deep dive on Khloe Kardashian's next Instagram post.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Actually, we're awaiting the arrival of the next deep dive. Now, you recently appeared on Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club to talk about Tall Man.
Very esteemed podcast with very esteemed authors, yes.
So we have to start getting people their homework for the next deep dive. Toby, what book is coming up next?
We are going to be doing Two Truths and a Lie by Ellen McGarrahan.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be all journalists from south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Oh, okay.
We'll have Keith Sharon.
Yep.
And we'll have Chris Joyner.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Very nice.
So it's going to be awesome. And this is actually the book is written by a woman who used to be a newspaper reporter too. So a lot of print journalism going on.
Anyway, speaking of ball slapping, right now on Married with Podcast, we've got an interesting question from a listener who says that she really enjoys the ball slapping sex.
Yes, she does.
with her man.
Yep.
But she likes it tender with a woman.
That's right.
She's strong enough for a man, but made for a woman.
Perhaps.
Perhaps. And she wants to know if there's something wrong with her. And Rebecca gives some really good advice.
I do.
I also give some really bad advice, apparently.
Yes.
About
a
neighbor who hears things. And anyway, I'm just going to say that you
did your best. We all just do our best.
Just doing our best.
We're just doing our best, and sometimes we miss the mark. All right, so Kevin, before we end the business section, do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Stephanie Hansen and Trisha LaMagna. Bless you.
Bless you guys. Bless everybody who joins us on Patreon and everybody who doesn't. And thank you for muscling through this business section. All right, so we have an A plot therapy plot and a B plot therapy plot, right? So the A plot therapy plot is Steve Carell giving Sam therapy to try to do two things. One is to try to, on the surface, help Sam through his psychopathic urges to become a serial killer, but also in some way to try to keep Sam in therapy long enough that he will be able to stay alive, which he's been both transparent about and is doing subversive things around. And the B plot is Steve Carell doing his own therapy survival with his dead therapist in his dreams, and also working through some of his own backstory with his Orthodox son, who has estranged himself from him and sort of rejected Steve Carell and his wife by becoming very conservative and sort of rejecting their family in that way. And he has all of these flashbacks to that therapist who wrote that book after being a survivor of the Holocaust, who was like a very famous therapist. I looked it up to sort of get the backstory there. What do you think, Toby, of these sort of weaving these two therapy stories together? It's complicated. Do you think this is working, sort of this dual therapy story?
I do. And at first, the Holocaust stuff was making me a little nervous because I wasn't quite sure where he was going with that. But I think I'm not as nervous now that we've kind of got through it some more. I think the stuff with his family, which is it's sort of the way he's negotiated the conflict between his wife and his son, and his wife, who's a cantor, who's like much more liberal, sort of antagonizes him, to be quite honest.
By serving desserts to the kids in front of the Orthodox kids.
Or like singing at his wedding when she knows it's going to be alienating to the community that he's becoming a part of. So again, I thought that it was handled really well in that it's clear what's kind of going on. And you don't get a real sense of how he's dealing with it because you mostly just see him observing. But then how do the different members of his family sort of interpret his unwillingness to act in those situations? And then his finally understanding how that's interpreted by the different people in his family. Again, I thought it was just very smartly written. I think they just parse it out in the right amounts too, because I think a lot of times these things really detract from the main story. Like I didn't find myself being like, okay, can we get back to the serial killer? Right. I felt like those stories had enough heft to carry their weight. And then when it came back, it was, I guess you kind of felt that there was more at stake for him rather than just, trying to kill time until he could make an escape.
Kevin, I sort of feel like he is working with Sam on things that he did not work with on himself and with his own son.
Yeah.
How do you think that these two plots are working together when they're woven together in this way?
Well, I think that, because this A plot is the serial killer story and Steve Carell is, literally stuck in the basement with his own thoughts, it really gives wide berth to the writers as to who is Steve Carell and what is his background? Because it's not like he's a cop and this fits this thing. They have essentially a blank slate and they could go wherever they want. He could be, he could be an Irish bartender, or he could have been a prize fighter, he could have been any of those other things. And so this particular thing is really interesting. They do a great job of sort of examining his Jewish identity, and then bringing this other story. This whole drama, this B plot, in and of itself could be a nice little dramatic movie, right? It's just got so much depth. I mean, more so than you would expect from, what you could deride as being a knockoff of Misery, right? I also think that this idea of when we're seeing Alan's internal thoughts, that it's in this setting where he's talking to his old dead therapist. The reason I think that works is because, he really can't communicate with anybody else. And you really just can't see him thinking out loud to himself or talking to himself as he's walking around. It really is, I think, clever because it works thematically because he's a therapist, but it also gives him another character to sort of bounce his ideas off of and bare his soul.
Charlie, I need a plan. I'm like a second year just throwing shit against the wall.
You have to find a way to come out of this alive.
As crazy as it sounds, I think there is a conscience in there somewhere.
So, Laura, the patient, we have more than one patient in this series, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing so it starts with the patient, obviously the obvious patient, which is our serial killer. But then it becomes clear that the patient is also obviously Alan, who until now hasn't really been forced to deal with his own shit. And now he has no choice. As he's sitting down there faced with the prospect of death, it's like, well, I can sit here and sharpen my foot cream container, and it's obviously a time for self-reflection. So, I just thought that was really interesting how we go back and forth between him being the patient with his dead therapist, and, at the same time, him still being the therapist for Sam. But, so it's really kind of like this double meaning, like in the end, is this work that Alan is doing on himself while he's in this period of isolation / captivity / just total insanity? Is that something that's actually going to change the course of his life in the end? Or is it just going to give him sort of a peace of mind for what? I don't know. But, I think it was pretty clear that he hadn't dealt with any of his own stuff prior to going into the basement with the chain.
So we're talking about this very much like it's this quiet contemplative play, right? Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of action scenes in this show too. And I do want to talk about some of the expositional action. So Toby, we see an on-screen murder. We see more than one on-screen murder in this show. But the first on-screen murder we see is incredibly jarring. And then after that, we see them literally digging a grave for half of an episode of a show, reminding us, of course, that there's tremendous brutality here. So that then takes us out of this quiet, gentle action into this different kind of action, which is another kind of juxtaposition, right?
Yeah, I thought that was a very effective scene because I do think that one of the traps that something like this can fall into is that it just becomes kind of an intellectual jousting thing or whatever. And you kind of lose track of the fact that this guy kills people. I mean, the scene it's not graphic in the slightest. There's no blood or anything, but it is absolutely brutal and violent and shocking. I thought it was spot on the way they handled it. I don't know. It was jarring. I mean, it really was. It was a shocking scene and sort of reminded you of what the stakes were.
As did the note in the throat solution that Steve Carell's Alan comes up with.
That was inspired. That was great. But then the note disappears and the body disappears and he says, well, nothing's going to happen from it. I kind of wonder if in the finale that, just it's sort of the idea that, this note is going to rescue him. No, it's not. It was just dropped too abruptly for it to not sort of surface again.
But also the note didn't have any information. The note was just him saying he loved his son, right?
Well, I think it was both. I think that he was trying, he was talking about, the coroner will find this note and then the cops are going to keep smashing in through the plate glass window. Yep. So I don't know. I guess I'd have to rewind it and look at both. But I do remember sort of the last thing he wrote was that he loved his son. Not his daughter, but okay.
Oh, yeah. That poor daughter. She just became a doctor.
Yeah.
She did fine,
Yeah, she's fine.
Of course, the other big action scene that we see in this show is the ping pong scene.
Oh, yeah.
Because every good basement rec room needs a ping pong table, right?
Yeah. I'm obviously, you could tell it's a legit basement when someone wheels out the ping pong table that they had stashed back there in the 70s. And like, oh, my dad's, ping pong table. I'm sure there are boxes back there with old baseball trophies and gloves and,
bowling shit.
Yeah, and broken refrigerators and vacuum cleaners and
Christmas ornaments.
Yeah, it looked right. I mean, didn't it look like all the basements that like we would go over our friend's house and like, come on, we're gonna go down and hang on and play records.
And Sam's room is down there.
Sam's room is down there.
Well, that's creepy.
Doesn't that strike you, Laura, as like maybe he's being exiled from the rest of the house, or maybe it's nothing?
But is it a self-imposed exile?
Yeah, no, we don't ever see upstairs except through the nanny cam.
Oh my God, the nanny cam. I was impressed that they were able to get it and get it set up in such a short period of time.
Sounds like they had a whole day, though. She's coming over tomorrow on Saturday.
I feel the most dread in this show when we see Sam actually out in the world. I feel more dread seeing Sam in the real world.
Like at work
At work, on the street, like, doing whatever, than I do seeing him in this basement. Because I feel like at least when he's in this basement, like there's some comfort because he's on this like little play set that we've become accustomed to. And when you see him in the world, because by the way, the makeup and hair and art direction of this show extends to Sam's persona, right? He looks like the basement of his house. Like he does. He has the same look as he looks like walking wood paneling, like he does. And so when you see him in this
fall's fashion,
right?
Walking wood paneling.
And when you see him in the colorful, bright, normal world, like in the high school where he went to high school, or like on the street next to, it's like he looks like a fucking serial killer. And I find that very, very jarring. And that to me is like the beauty of the art direction of this show, which is very hard to do, is to like do a thing where you have a serial killer and you elevate the levels of creepiness without just constantly watching them physically threaten people. There is that moment where he actually talks to the guy he's going to kill, and he has a glimpse of him wearing a leather glove. And you're like, why doesn't the guy notice that he's wearing the leather glove?
I know, that was very suspicious.
Literally all I can see right now. Literally all that I can see. All right, so we are in episode 9 of the show, which means all we have left is the finale, and we have not yet seen that as the time of this taping.
Yeah. We're going to miss it. We can't see it out of the country.
Oh,
don't spoil it, Twitter.
Maybe we'll be able to if we get a little VPN action. You never know.
I know. We had this problem when we were trying to do the dropout that week. Yeah.
It's right. We didn't get to see if Elizabeth Seyfried was going to like do her Oscar for TV winning performance in the finale.
She did.
What do you guys think is going to happen? I mean, we're all going to look like fools, I think, at the end of this. Does anyone have any predictions that they want to float before we do our review of this show? Laura, do you have any guesses as to what you think is going to happen here?
Well, I mean, we haven't talked about my feelings about ruining Kenny Chesney by bringing him into this and having all the Kenny Chesney songs played and the serial killer. Maybe he'll have a cameo. Maybe Kenny Chesney will talk him out of being a serial killer. No, I think that I kind of like what you're saying before about the mother. I feel like there's going to be something more with the mother. I don't know. I almost feel like we're going to be let down by the ending, because to me, I'm like, okay, the ending is he cures him from being a serial killer and he releases him. I'm like, that's not going to happen. The ending is he just has a heart attack and dies. Oops. I don't even know at this point. I mean, there's so many ways this could go.
Toby, what do you think? Think it's going to be a season 2?
Oh God,
no.
You think they're going to wrap it up with some sort of end of the story?
They just comes down with some dumplings and then it fades out. No, I think my sense is that the theme of this is kind of when faced with unreason, right? Or faced with evil, like you can do all the like kind of talking you want. You can wait for somebody else to come and save you. But the reality is that you have to act yourself. And I think that's part of what the Holocaust thing was about. That's certainly what the therapist talks about. That was what I kind of gleaned at some point during this, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. So I may be completely off on this, but I think essentially like it comes down to Steve Carell has to do something to save himself, that like delaying or reasoning and all these things are not going to be successful in this situation. So he has to either make a move to get out of there, or he's not going to. So that's my prediction.
Kevin, what do you think?
Well, the producers of this show also produced The Americans.
My
which was,
favorite
again,
TV
another
show of all time.
Yeah, another show that's wound as tightly as a 12-day clock.
Yeah.
And so I predict that we will be surprised because they are very clever, although I think that he probably will survive. He will be reunited with his son, and they will reconcile. Alan will learn a little more, appreciate his own Jewish heritage. Something's going to happen with the mom. Maybe, and probably as he's dying because he was shot by the cops or something, just before the light goes out in his eyes, Sam is cured or something, or I don't know. But I predict, I think they're going to land the plane.
Oh, I have different thoughts now than I know that's by the Americans people. I have completely different thoughts. So first of all, I just want to acknowledge one of the greatest lines that's ever been uttered in the history of television.
Yeah, what is it?
I'm gonna kill my father, cut his head off, and fuck his skull. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna fuck his skull.
That combination of words has never before been uttered and will never again be uttered on television. Now that I know this is made by the same people that made The Americans, I believe there may in fact be a season 2 that will in fact also be good. I don't know if any of the rest of you, Laura and Toby, watched The Americans, a show that after season 1 you were like, there's no way that season 2 can be as tense and as good as season 1. That show was on for what, 5 seasons?
Maybe more, but yeah, it was good.
Every single season was tenser and better than the season before, and they continued that tension in a new way with new writing every single season of that show. So I don't know. I'm not sure the story's going to be over at the end of the season.
So do you think Sam is just going to be kidnapping people from different professions and bringing them down in there to see if he can help them out?
I think Alan keeps getting kidnapped. He's like, again?
Yeah. I was thinking maybe Sam could get like a bartender one time or an English teacher another time.
How many times can June from The Handmaid's Tale get recaptured and sent back to Gilead, for fuck's sake?
Oh, God.
Maybe Sam becomes partially cured and then he has a whole new set of tensions. I don't know.
Or he becomes a therapist himself.
Maybe he decides,
two of them open their own practice.
Maybe he decides to start a podcast company in Atlanta.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Do you ever meet someone who seems kind of off? Whether it's a creepy neighbor or random phone number that keeps calling you, Truthfinder has you covered. You can search for people by name, address, phone number, email, and more. Truthfinder can be especially helpful for running confidential background checks on anyone you're planning to meet from online dating apps. Go to truthfinder.com/podcasts for a special offer. That's truthfinder.com/podcasts to access your special offer today.
I want people to understand this ordeal, it's taken a toll on both of us.
Casey Anthony's parents respond after 15 years of allegations.
I've gotten blamed for something I didn't do, and it tears me up inside.
This can change our life. This is serious.
This is their final response.
The test is about to begin. Please remain still.
Casey Anthony's parents, the lie detector test. Watch now, only on A&E. And watch next day on the A&E app.
The friendship is sharing deal. Because I want one of your McNuggets.
And I need some of your Quarter Pounder.
There's a deal for everyone at McDonald's. Get one favorite like 10-piece chicken McNuggets, a Quarter Pounder, or a Big Mac, and get another for just $1. Price and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know, should they check out The Patient? It is a show on Hulu. Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for The Patient?
Yeah, I'm going to go thumbs up with this. This was a nice kind of diversion last weekend. I binged most of it, and the episodes were short. And I kept watching one after the next because I was wanting to see what happened. It was really unique compared to anything else I've watched lately in terms of just the set being mostly, for the most part, just two characters. There's tension, but it's not sort of this edge of the seat tension. It's sort of a slow, always present undercurrent. There were some good Kenny Chesney songs throughout, which I did sing along to, even though I wasn't really in favor with why they were put in there. Yeah, I thought this is a really interesting show, and I am eagerly waiting for the finale to see what happens.
Toby Ball, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for The Patient?
Yeah, that's what we didn't even talk about. Like, I thought the scene where he's talking about Barefoot Nation was like a great scene. I thought that was so good.
No Shoes Nation.
No
Toby.
Shoes Nation, whatever
Nation.
the hell it's called.
No Shoes Nation.
I don't know. Yeah, so I really like this. I thought it was extremely well written, extremely well acted. You know, it's a tough one to pull off when it's a lot of it is talking and people trying to, manipulate each other or find common ground and all this stuff. Like, I think it's really hard to make it feel real the whole time. And I think they do that. And so it's a big thumbs up from me.
Kevin Flynn.
I'm a thumbs up. I think Steve Carell gives an inspired performance here. It's subtle, but also very tense. The writing is excellent. It does go in places that you don't think it will. Thematically, it's very deep. Laura binged it, but we were watching it week to week, and an episode would end, and we're like, God damn it! We got to wait till next week.
Rare, right?
Yeah, so this is really good. If you haven't started The Patient, I say do it.
Same way. I feel like we felt when we discovered Severance before other people were watching it, like a few months ago.
Yep.
This is like the Severance of right now. If you have not started The Patient, start The Patient. Everyone is going to watch it in a couple months, and everyone's going to be like, did you see it? Watch it now. It is freaking awesome. Just so you know, though, it's dark as hell, but it's not like I'm a baby about scary stuff, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. It's very, 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 very freaking good. It's one of the best shows I've seen in a really long time. So I'm a huge thumbs up for The Patient. All right, now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the crime of the week. The Chai Stop in Lancashire, England has a new policy. Rude customers will pay more than double. If you ask the cashier for a Desi Chai, it will cost £5. But if you ask for a Desi Chai, please, it will run you £3. And if you go to the counter and say, hello, Desi Chai, please, it's only £1.90. The owner says he hasn't charged anyone a $5 yet, but the sign gets a laugh and promotes a respectful atmosphere. He says people can sometimes be grumpy in the morning and they appreciate a gentle reminder about manners. It goes to show the price of being polite is very low. No word on how much they charge when people say, now give me a fucking scone. Now, panel, we'd love to make it more expensive in this world to be rude. Where would you like this policy to be implemented? Laura Bricker, what do you think?
Oh my gosh, on the sidewalk in front of my office where people have been walking their dogs and this week let a dog pee on one of the displays at the shop underneath me and then just kept on walking. So I think that this needs to come to the sidewalk in Exeter.
Well, isn't it free to piss, though?
Since you said piss, that's going to be a $5, Laura Bricker.
It's a $5, yeah.
Toby Ball, where would you like this policy to be implemented? More expensive to be rude?
I would actually like to designate a large part of our police force to driving around behind cars. And when people throw their cigarette butts out the window, I'd pull their asses over. And I don't know what an applicable fine would be, but it would be more than a $5.
Oh, what do you think, Kevin Flynn?
Well, I'm going to be like all the sports bars in New England. Yankee fans pay double.
Oh, I'm just going to say Facebook, my town Facebook page,
God.
all the Facebook. Just if you're a dick, $5. $5.
Yep.
I would be rich. I'd be so freaking rich. All right, that's going to do it for us. But before we go, Laura Bricker, do we have a cat of the week this week?
Yes, we do, Rebecca. Frosty the cat is our cat of the week. And Frosty comes to us from Angela Jones, who is a vet tech. One of their rescue groups dropped off this adorable baby in a live trap for a spay-neuter. When I attempted to open the door and place her in a cage for surgery, she bolted out the front and into the hospital, an event which I thought I had prepared for. All the doors were closed, so limited access to the clinic. And in 25 years, Angela has never had an escapee like this. Unbeknownst to anyone except our friend here, there was a vent open in one of the rooms, and she spent 4 days in the ductwork.
Shit.
I learned about that in cat detective school. It's a thing. No, it's a thing. There's like famous cat cases where cats are in the airport hiding in the ducts. There was one that we actually did a case study where a cat was in the vet for like months.
I doubt they're actually famous, but all right.
In cat detective school, they are, Kevin. And here is a picture of Frosty with 0 regrets. Surgery went well. She's being fostered while looking for her forever home.
Wow.
So,
All right.
There you go.
Laura Bricker, of course, if folks want to submit Cats of the Week, they can go to our Facebook group, put them there. They can email them to crimewriterson@gmail.com. But if they want to tweet to you, Laura, how can they find you on Twitter?
They can find me on the Twitter at Laura Bricker.
And Toby Ball, how can folks find you on social media, Twitter in particular?
At TobyBallNH.
Kevin Flynn, how can you be found?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
And if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram or the very weird Be Real, where some listeners have actually been joining, you can find me at Reb Lavoie. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Crime Writers On, and I encourage you to join our incredible community in our official Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group. Just go to our regular Facebook page, hit join the group, answer a couple questions, we'll let you in. Support the show at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media. You get the Crime Writers On After Show, Married with Podcast, Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast, and Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcasts. Our theme song was composed and performed by Ty Gibbons. Our line editor is the very wonderful Olivia Burdett.
Not today.
The executive producer of this fine program is Kevin P. Flynn. This show was recorded in the Yoga Loft above the Bodega in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, otherwise known as Studio C, The Closet, in our New Hampshire basement, where Kevin is chained to the floor and edits this podcast as if his life depended upon it.
I'm adding compression!
On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
So we have to start getting people their homework for the next deep dive. Toby, what book is coming up next?
Oh, good God, Kevin. It is Two Truths and a Lie by somebody whose name I can never remember. Hold on.
It's one of my favorite games.
After that, we're going to be covering 7 Minutes in Heaven.
Oh, boy.
What?
And after that, the next edition will be Spin the Bottle.
What's 7 Minutes in Heaven?
Oh, my God.
Toby, you know it's 7.
What?
Wow.
Toby got invited to 0 parties in middle school.
It sounds sexy. All right.
It is.
I'll start all over again.
Partners in Crime Media.
The friendship is sharing deal.
Because I want one of your McNuggets.
And I need some of your Quarter Pounder.
There's a deal for everyone at McDonald's. Get one favorite like 10-piece chicken McNuggets, a Quarter Pounder, or a Big Mac, and get another for just $1. Price and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.